The good news, the Dodgers outscored the D-backs 27. Not so great news, they finished the weekend 2-2. We'll get into the back end of the lineup with James Outman and Miguel Vargas. We'll talk about Vesia and Brusdar Graterol, and we'll talk about the bright spot of the Dodgers weekend, the starting pitching. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. If you've ever thought about becoming an MLB GM and managing your baseball franchise, then this game is for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On, that's all caps, in the game. Ultimate Baseball GM. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue. We are here every weekday morning, Monday through Friday, for about 30 minutes in the morning or whenever you want to listen, but we'll be ready for you by the morning. And you can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube if you just search for Locked On Dodgers. And if you never want to miss a day because you know we're not going to, you can just subscribe. This is your first time listening watching. I'm Vince Samperio. There's my co-host, Jeff Snider. We're both here together after the first weekend of the MLB season, of the Dodgers season. Dodgers finished 2-2. We're going to get into all that, but Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that cover the team, have been to Dodger Stadium plenty of times. We've also spent some time in the press box and locker room. So we're here to bring you what we can bring you about the Dodgers, and what that is the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue. So, without further ado, let's talk about the Dodgers weekend, Jeff. We can get into some initial thoughts, and then we'll get into our actual little segments here.
Yeah, I think my main thought is it's fun to have real baseball back. I enjoyed watching the games. It was fun to watch baseball with my family again. And it was, obviously some frustrating bits, but there was also some really fun bits. And overall, it was any weekend with baseball is better than weekend without baseball.
Yeah, I don't know if obviously, opening day brings feelings of baseball's back, but I think after the World Baseball Classic, having like that week lull where there was spring training games that, like, I don't care about these spring training games at all. And then, real baseball being back at Dodger Stadium, even just watching baseball in general, MLB TV has that big inning now, which is basically like red zone for MLB, which is fun. Take you to all the important parts of the game. So, yeah, baseball being back, fun. Dodgers baseball, as we know, is fun, but sometimes not so fun. Let's start off with the fun stuff. The Dodgers starting pitchers had a really good opening series, started by Julio and then went to Kershaw, or then went to May and then went to Kershaw, and then finished with Noah Syndergaard. Yeah, all the starting pitchers look good. They all went 6 innings. They all had quality starts. That's a good sign for a Diamondbacks team that, maybe isn't quite there yet, but has a lot of young talent there.
Yeah, I am interested to see how the Diamondbacks hit the rest of the season, because I do think they're going to be a solid team, and the Dodgers held them to 7 runs. And at least 3 of those runs were allowed by the bullpen. 3 of them were allowed by the bullpen. So the starting pitching averaged allowing 1 run a game. And that's going to do a lot better than 2-2 most of the time, especially with the Dodgers offense. So it was really, really good pitching. And like I said, I have no idea what to think, because my brain still thinks of the Diamondbacks as being bad at baseball. But I do think they're going to be pretty good this year. And so they did a pretty good job. And we did see finally on Sunday how important it is to keep Corbin Carroll off the bases, because that dude can wreak havoc. And the D-backs first run scored because of Corbin Carroll's legs. And that ended up being the difference. And so, but other than that, the Dodgers pitched really well, especially the starting pitching. And that is very, very promising.
Yeah, they were all efficient. And, obviously around the league, not everyone had great starting pitching, but I feel like this pitch timer is going to help out some starting pitchers because they are going to just, kind of be up there throwing, maybe pitching to contact a little bit more, and maybe that efficiency does go up. So maybe in the, those boomers that hate starting pitchers only going 5 innings and now hate the pitch timer, maybe it'll have a reverse trend where now the starting pitchers are going, 6-7 innings now because they don't have much time to think or relax or whatever, and they have to throw. And for the most part, if you're a quality caliber pitcher in the major leagues, even your mistakes aren't going to be hit out all the time. So you're going to get a lot of outs, even with not your best stuff. Not that I'm saying that's what we saw with the Dodgers, because the Dodgers, thoroughly looked well, but they all did it a little bit differently. Kershaw did rack up the strikeouts, had 9 of them. Syndergaard had 6, I think, at the end, but you don't remember his outing from he had a lot of strikeouts, and then Dustin May was just efficient, getting a lot of outs, not via the strikeout, which is the one guy you would have thought was via the strikeout. So, yeah, like I said, it's the first weekend. We don't know much what the Diamondbacks are, but you can only pitch to who your opponent is. And for the first time, almost through the entire rotation, the Dodgers rotation looked really good.
Yeah, for sure. And I do respect your commitment to respecting Rob Manfred and calling it the pitch timer. For me, it's the pitch clock. But I noticed, I don't know if you noticed this weekend, but it seemed like there were a lot of MLB sanctioned graphics going up on all the games, specifically talking about the pitch timer rules. It seemed like there was a memo sent out saying, make sure that we call this a pitch timer as much as possible so people stop calling it a pitch clock. But it's not going to work on me.
That's how I found out about it.
Ways.
So.
Yeah,
that's how I found out about it in an MLB meeting. So,
yeah,
we'll see Michael Grove tonight, and then that'll complete the first 5 through. Oh well, I guess we need to talk about that. Ryan Pepiot went on the injured list with an oblique strain, so Michael Grove was on the opening day roster. He will be the Dodgers' 5th starter for the time being. Obliques are weird, and we didn't hear about it really until literally the morning of opening day. So we haven't really heard anything more of how extreme it is. But if it's an oblique, it's almost guaranteed 2-3 weeks, especially as a pitcher. So we might not even see Pepiot before Tony Gonsolin comes back, which is kind of sucks for him. But
yeah, Dave Roberts said he expects Michael Grove to make 2 or 3 starts. But you don't really know if that when they expect Pepiot back, or is that when they expect Gonsolin back? So yeah, it's a bummer for Pepiot. I mean, in a way. And this is definitely a non-team way of looking at it. It's a lot better to get that oblique after you've been named the 5th starter, so that you get major league pay when you're on the injured list instead of minor league pay. Although the minor league pay is better now too. We probably didn't talk about that either. The new CBA between Major League Baseball and the minor leaguers. So they all got raises, but it's still much better money. Ryan Pepiot, if he's on the injured list for a month, he's going to make 120 grand or so while he's on the injured list. So, obviously that's good news for him, but terrible news that he was on the opening day roster and then didn't get to be on the opening day roster. Bummed for him. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Michael Grove can do. And hopefully at least the offense will have one of them boom games if Grove doesn't do great.
Yeah, at least the good thing is with Dodgers starting pitching for the most part doing so well, and with Andre Jackson picking up, 3 innings on Saturday night, the bullpen's somewhat well rested. So if Grove, he's not necessarily, he's stretched out, but we've seen him before. He's not the most efficient guy, and who knows how he's going to come out and, against the Rockies. But the bullpen is in good shape coming out of the weekend. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Back of the lineup is a little bit fun and interesting with the rookies, James Outman, Miguel Vargas, like I mentioned, first weekend, but that's all we can talk about. So we're going to get into that. But first, we're going to talk about Ultimate Baseball GM, because that's who today's episode is brought to you by. Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I've played in a while, on my phone at least. I'm a guy that likes, the background of things, of building a team, maybe not the finances so much, but you do got to deal with that, building a team, draft, free agency, trades, all that kind of stuff. I don't really play video games to actually play the games. I play them to build the team behind. And right here on my phone, I can do that with Ultimate Baseball GM. It's great. So Pro Baseball GM. So go check it out. You got to do all those things. It's fun. You can create a league or a little, cohort with your friends and play for fun, play for money. We have a little competition with Locked On MLB hosts, and we're playing and seeing who could do the best team. So, you can do that with your friends. So go check it out. Right now, Locked On Dodgers listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's with all caps in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com. Scan the code right here if you're watching on YouTube, or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Jeff. So top of the lineup, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith all had a pretty good, solid weekend to varying degrees. JD Martinez, Max Muncy had up and down games, but, they each contributed in their own way at some point. And Miguel Rojas is down there in the 9th spot, and he's contributed. But we want to talk about the rookies, the young guys, Miguel Vargas, James Outman, because they had an element to the bottom of the lineup. Not necessarily that what's been missing in the last few years for the Dodgers, but that's different. A little bit of the unknown and a little bit of quality at bats that maybe was missing from the bottom of the lineup the last few years, and even missing sometimes now. I mean, Chris Taylor didn't have a great weekend either, but yeah, Miguel Vargas is continues to be a walking machine. We saw him in spring, even when he couldn't swing a bat, he was still drawing walks. Now he can swing a bat, but he's still drawing walks. James Outman, we talked about him on opening day, but he continued to have good at bats throughout the weekend. So yeah, Jeff, like I said, it's not an element that we haven't seen before, but it's a little bit of an element of the unknown and a little bit of element of the surprise when things go good, and eventually, some days they won't go so good.
Yeah, for sure. And Vargas walking a lot has been a lot of fun. Outman has shown really good command of the strike zone too. He still has plenty of swing and miss, but when he swings and misses, it's generally at strikes for the most part. And yeah, I just found myself watching the games and getting excited when, it's like, okay, always excited for Mookie and Freddie and Will. And then it's like, oh, JD Martinez, okay, I'm less excited right now. And Peralta, okay. And then, but we're almost to Outman and Vargas. And, it's a different thing. And both of them are going to slump at some point this season. And, Miguel Vargas probably isn't going to finish the season with whatever he has, 769 on base percentage. If he finishes with a 769 on base percentage, I will eat my shoe. But he's good, and it's not like he's playing out of his head. It's good quality at bats, and good quality at bats don't always get the results you want, and that's why the on base percentage is going to go down. But it is going to be a solid on base percentage based on what we're seeing. That the guy has a good eye, he has good command of the strike zone, hits the ball hard when he does hit it, and Outman's kind of the same thing. Not quite the same bat to ball skills, but he's hitting the ball hard. He's swinging at strikes, and those two guys were on base a lot. They were starting things a lot. And with them batting 7th and 8th, and then, you got Rojas batting 9th, and then Mookie coming up, and even Rojas, he hasn't really done much yet, but you feel like he's got a chance to at least poke a base hit for you once in a while and turn the lineup over to get to Mookie with some runners on. It's actually an exciting thing. You always look, okay, who's coming up next inning? And I noticed that, like, when I saw that it was Vargas and Outman coming up, I was excited, and that felt new to me.
Yeah, and like I said, it is new to us literally with Outman and Vargas, and I think it's partially excitement for these young guys, seeing what they can do, knowing that the Dodgers have not a lot riding on them, but a lot of the success that they're going to have this year is going to be based on how those guys do. The other element that didn't really come through this weekend, and for the Dodgers, with the bases and the new rules with pickoffs and everything, stolen base attempts were up through however many, through 4 games now, or 4 days of the baseball season compared to last year, compared to 2021. Stolen bases are way up. The Dodgers weren't one of those teams that had them up like that. Outman did steal a base in a key situation. Unfortunately, the Dodgers weren't able to drive them in. But I think with them, if they are getting on base, Vargas has some speed too. And maybe this will come as the season goes on. But I do think, just in general, the Dodgers didn't quite take advantage of those new rules like some other teams did. And I think they can. I think they have the speed. I think they have time. They did get caught stealing a couple of times. So it's not like they weren't trying. And I hope that those two, caught stealing don't deter them, because they were really close. And one of them was overturned.
Both of them.
Both of them were overturned. So, and that's the way it goes sometimes. But I feel like with those guys too, like Outman getting on base and stealing second, or Vargas getting on base, stealing second. And then, like I said, Miguel Vargas, we know he can poke a single, at the very least. And now you got to run basically, out of nowhere if you get a single or a walk and then a stolen base or whatever the case is. So, yeah, I'm excited to see them. The other part, flip side is defensively. James Outman looks really smooth out there in center field. I'm sure that eventually that won't always look so smooth in like one play or two, but he's looked really good. And Miguel Vargas has held his own, a couple of times here and there. Doesn't look as smooth, but he's made pretty much all the plays you need to. He's been able to turn some double plays. So yeah, I mean, all around those guys had a pretty good opening weekend.
Yeah, Vargas has looked excellent turning the double plays, and he's looked so. It's kind of funny. It's really the couple of grounders he's bobbled, he's recovered, he's gotten the out, he hasn't made an error, but they were almost too easy. And it to my untrained eye or to my little league coaching eye, it looked like, okay, just charge it one step. Basically pick your hop instead of letting the hop pick you. And it looked like he just kind of hung back a little bit too much and didn't quite get the hop he wanted. And, that's something that will probably come with time with working with Miguel Rojas. We see it all the time. You and I both coach kids in baseball, and there's a huge difference between the infielders who go get the ball and the ones who wait for the ball to get to them, and even Mookie Betts had the same thing happen to him at second base. A ball ate him up and he recovered and threw the guy out. And so, but one thing I was really impressed with is the Dodgers turning a bunch of double plays. They had at least 4 double plays this week, maybe even more. And Mookie was involved, and actually, I think at least 5 I can remember. Like you said, Outman looked great in center field, really smooth, really gets to the ball. Even when we saw on, I guess it was probably Saturday's game with Trace Thompson in center field, there was a play where Gabriel Moreno, the Diamondbacks catcher, kind of caught Thompson off guard and tagged up and went to third on a flyout. And my thought was, I don't think there's any way that would happen with Outman, because I noticed Outman is really, really conscientious about getting there early enough to get in position to make the throw. And Thompson kind of got caught on his heels. I don't know if it was because it was the catcher on second or if he just didn't get a good enough read to get to where he wanted to be. But Outman, I have been nothing but pleased with Outman's defense. Basically, he hasn't had any or very many super hard plays, but I mean, he's had plays where he's had to go get the ball. He's had a couple where he's had to come in on it. And I haven't seen anything drop that I thought, oh, Bellinger would have had that. So,
yeah. And like I said, some of those are plays that he's made look a little more effortless than maybe they were for like other center fielders, which is what we were used to with Cody Bellinger a lot of the time. So, if that transition can remain seamless, then the Dodgers are going to be in a good boat too. I do wonder, and obviously the Dodgers turned double plays last year before. I wonder if that, the change in the shift and not, is going to add some more double plays to maybe the Dodgers this year, because they won't be able to shift show extremely. They won't have guys in awkward positions, or at least not as awkward as they were in other years. And I wonder if that's going to add up. I know obviously we're going to see balls hit that would have been covered by the shift, would not be covered by the shift, or still get through when guys are shaded. But that was one thing I noticed this week. Like all those double plays. Like, man, I don't remember the Dodgers really being like me remembering like, oh yeah, the Dodgers turned double plays.
Yeah. I think it's huge. Like you said, being in position. It's like, oh, I'm playing second base where a normal second baseman plays. There's a ground ball to shortstop. I know what I need to go do. And it's not, I'm playing right behind second base and I have to decide, am I going for the ball or am I running straight forward and then looking over my shoulder to get a throw for the double play? Yeah, I do think there's a lot to that with the more traditional positioning, we will see more traditional defensive plays. And one of those is the 6-4-3 double play or the 4-6-3, or even we saw 2 5-4-3s the other day. And it's just that those are fun. That's classic baseball. And if that brings back more of those, that'll be fun, especially if it's the Dodgers on defense and not on offense.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Last part, we're going to talk about a couple bullpen decisions and bullpen play or pitchers that maybe didn't quite come through and make those decisions look a little bit more rough than they needed to be. First, we're going to talk about Built Bar, because today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And we've talked about Built Bar a lot. You guys should know about Built Bar. But Built Bar, if you don't know, is the best tasting protein bar out there. They're all protein bars. They got a bunch of different flavors. They're all covered in 100% real chocolate. They're always adding flavors to keep up with the season or to add new flavors. They got those built puffs, which are a little bit more, those taste more like candy bars than the actual built, like the protein ones or the bars. Either way, they have a bunch of great flavors. They got churro puffs. They got, chocolate. I think they have a mint chocolate. They got some raspberry. They got different things. And there's multiple ways to get Built Bars. You can go to built.com and check them out and get some there. You can also visit your local Walmart or Sam's Club and head to the pharmacy section. They should have them there if they're not sold out. So Built Bars, I recommend them. Jeff recommends them. We've both used them personally and actually spent our own personal money on them. So go check out Built Bars. Go to built.com or go to Walmart or Sam's and get you some Built Bars right now. All right, Jeff, let's finish up. So Dodgers, like I mentioned, their starting pitchers went deep into every game, so there wasn't a lot of work for the bullpen, especially one of the nights. Andre Jackson came in on Saturday after Kershaw and finished out that game, so the Dodgers didn't have to use any, relievers or in the sense of beyond Jackson. But there was a couple of guys, and the two games they did lose were in part, not entirely on the bullpen, but the runs that were scored were on the bullpen that ended up being the winning runs. One of those nights was Alex Vesia. The other night was Brusdar Graterol. You can quibble with the decision from Dave Roberts because a lot of people are going to do that. And anytime a decision goes wrong, that's an easy way out. But it's also a matter of guys getting the job done. Both of them didn't get it done. But I don't think, obviously if one time is not an indictment on what their season's going to be. And based on what we've seen in these guys in the past, maybe it takes them a little while to get going.
Yeah, for sure. I mentioned this in the YouTube short I recorded right after the game that Alex Vesia and Brusdar Graterol are key components of this bullpen. And so you can't blame Dave Roberts for them coming in key moments in a game because they are guys. If the Dodgers are going to be successful this year, it's going to be in part because Brusdar Graterol and Alex Vesia pitched well in key situations. And but like you kind of hinted at, both of those guys started kind of slow last year. Graterol started really slow. Not started really slow. He started good and then got bad, and to the point where he had a 4.81 ERA after the game on June 5th, and that was through 22 games, 22 appearances for him. And in his next 21 appearances, his ERA was 0.81. And Vesia was kind of the same thing with his first 22 appearances. Also, his ERA was 3.63. And then his next 41 games, the rest of the season, his ERA was 1.46. And so, that doesn't mean that these guys have to start slow. And actually, both of them, they both, their first handful of appearances were scoreless last year, and that's not the case this year. But both of them settled in last year and pitched really, really well in really important innings. And so nothing about this. I mean, for me, Vesia, it was a bad pitch, platoon disadvantage, and Kyle Lewis has a lot of power, and Vesia hung him a pitch. And unfortunately, there was a guy on, and it was a day the offense only scored one run. And 2-run homers happen sometimes. You've mentioned before, not every mistake that a major league pitcher makes gets hit over the wall. In fact, I would guess it's like 10% of the bad pitches they make actually get hit for a home run. But when one of those 10% happens, it looks pretty bad. And then Graterol, it was just, he wasn't fooling anybody. Gave up 4 hits in that inning, I think. And the thing that stood out, our buddy Pat Dwyer sent us a DM after the game and said, why didn't Graterol throw a slider at all? And he didn't. It was all sinkers and cutters and a couple 4-seamers, no slider to be found. And it's like, when you are getting hit that much, why aren't you mixing in some off speed? And so I don't know. And I didn't see anybody asking anybody about that after the game. So I don't think we have an answer. Maybe he just didn't have a feel for it in the bullpen before he came in. And so he wasn't comfortable throwing it, but maybe, he faced mostly lefties and maybe he doesn't like throwing it to lefties as much, but he's a guy with some platoon splits and much better against righties than against lefties. And if he's going to start getting lefties out, he's going to need a pitch that can get lefties out. And whether that's being willing to throw the slider to lefties or figuring out something else. But he didn't have anything to get lefties out on Sunday, and he was lucky to only allow the one run. The Mookie Betts made a great throw, threw out a dude at home, and it very well could have been worse. It also could have been better because the bunt hit that scored the run, Graterol should have fielded it, and that would have been the third out, and they get out of that inning tied. McCarthy was either out of the box or almost out of the box when he bunted the ball. Somebody commented on that YouTube short and said, go watch it again. He was out of the box. He was standing on the plate. And so I did. And his foot was definitely on the plate, but I didn't see an angle that could show for sure that the back of his foot wasn't still a little bit on the line. And that's all that, if any of your foot is on any of the batter's box line, you are legal. And by that point, by the ninth inning, or was that top of the ninth? By the ninth inning, you've got the batter's box lines have been pretty well worn off. So maybe there was nothing they could do, but a matter of inches. And so, and a couple inches away from McCarthy being illegal, an inch away from Graterol fielding that ball and getting the third out. And who knows what happens then? Maybe Dave Roberts doesn't get his pinch hitter happy, or remembers that Austin Barnes shouldn't be playing any position with the word hitter in it, including pinch hitter. Baseball's a game of inches, and when you only score one run, you're not going to win very many games. And the Dodgers had 2 games this weekend. They only scored 1 run, and they lost both of them.
Yeah, and the one thing with Graterol, I noticed it for sure. Vesia, I don't remember where I was doing, but I don't think I was watching like intensely. But at least with Vesia, we know he's one of the slower pitchers on the Dodgers. At least that's what it feels like every time he pitches. It didn't feel like he was affected by the pitch clock, but you never know. But Graterol, at the very least, after the game, Dave Roberts and Will Smith both kind of said it was an uncharacteristic outing for him. And I didn't notice at the start of the inning, but once he had runners on, and when you have runners on, you have 20 seconds now, which is a little bit different than 15 seconds. And 20 seconds is still a long time if you set up as soon as you get the ball back, and what he was doing. But Graterol, I felt like, was rushing a little bit because there was a couple times where he didn't even come completely set, where if the umpires were really wanted to, they might have been able to call a balk on a couple of those pitches. And I wonder if he had, that too much in his mind that, I got to, hurry up and pitch. And, obviously he's not going to make that excuse. We're not going to make that as an excuse, but it could be, a reason, or it could be one of those things where he looks back and say like, you know what, look, I was throwing the ball with 12 seconds on the clock still. I still have time to, relax, settle in, whatever it is, get your foot in. We saw, some pitchers talk about it over the weekend where, and even JT Realmuto mentioned it as a catcher, like, I have time to catch my breath. And, when the guy's on base, obviously you don't want a guy on base. When you do have the guy on base, you do have that extra time. And if you're not necessarily focused on the guy on base, of him stealing or anything like that, which it didn't seem Graterol was too intent on that, you do have a little bit of extra time to kind of build yourself up and go at it. So, he'll figure it out if that was the thing. And obviously we hope he figures it out just in general. Like I said, it was mostly lack of command, and then not having that other pitch to kind of, at least give the batters a different look doesn't help, because, we know Graterol can throw 99, 100, 102, whatever the case is. But if you're not hitting your spots and you're still throwing it right down the middle and there's not too much movement, it's pretty easy for a major league hitter to put the bat on it.
Yeah, for sure. And, with that pitch clock question, if he was rushing or whatever, like you said, he'll figure it out if it was. And I don't know if you remember the point of the RIP Brenda story from last month, but the point of that story was sometimes an answer is helpful, even if it's not the right answer, just getting something out of your mind. And so even if it's like, if he can say, okay, I'm going to take more time, I'm going to, even if wasn't the problem here, if in his mind it fixes whatever the problem was, maybe that fixes things. So RIP Brenda again. And it's, I think Graterol is going to be okay. I wish that I hope he still has a slider. That's if Graterol doesn't throw a slider anymore, I'm not convinced he's going to be okay. But assuming this was a one-day thing that he wasn't throwing his slider, I assume he'll be okay. And same for Vesia. I think he's going to be okay. They just got to settle in, and maybe they're not quite to regular season form yet. I mean, Graterol, I don't think he hit 100. I know he hit 99, but there was a lot of 97s I noticed. And 97 is still fast, but it's not Graterol fast. And He wasn't getting strikeouts at 102. He's definitely not going to get strikeouts at 97.
Yeah. So, and like I said, it's one game, but that's all we have to go off of so far, and that's what we're gonna talk about. But either way,
Yep.
we move. That's all we had on our tab. Jeff, you got anything else you want to
add? No, I'm glad baseball's back. It's weird that because I'm blacked out for Diamondbacks and Rockies, it's kind of weird for me that the first 10 games of the season are against the Diamondbacks and Rockies. But there's only 28 games combined instead of 38 against those two teams, which means only 18 blacked out games the rest of the year for me after these first 10. And obviously nothing's really blacked out because this is America. So I still been watching the games, but it's much more convenient to watch when they're not playing the Rockies or DBacks. And they're going to Coors Field. Everybody. Oh no, then they're in LA. That's right. Coors Field is later. So good. We don't have to deal with fake baseball quite yet. So hopefully Michael Grove can shove today.
Yeah. Dodgers are 2-0 and I'm there, and I'm there the next two nights. So hopefully that bears out. And if
lesson learned, go to more games, Vince.
Yeah, I definitely learned that on Sunday.
We should start a Patreon just to pay for our gas money to go to Dodger games.
Yeah.
People hit us up on Patreon. I guess we got to set up a Patreon. Hit us up on Venmo.
Yeah, I can go to the games, but the gas does add up after a while. But I'll be there next two nights, so we'll see what
Try
happens.
living 661 miles from the stadium.
Yeah. The other part is game times real quick, where what we say about the Dodgers when they lose is if you're gonna lose, do it under 3 hours. Both losses under 3 hours. Both wins also under 3 hours. A couple of them quite significantly. So I'm a fan of these games when they're ending at like 9:30 LA time or even 8:30 LA time on Saturday when they play.
Saturday's game was awesome. Started an hour early, went 2 hours and 14 minutes. Like I had time to watch the end of WrestleMania and then watch 2 episodes of Worst Cook in America. That's how early that game got over.
Yeah, so we're down for these quicker games. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy baseball strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Also, how you can find us, Locked On Dodgers, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.